Hey, greetings and salutations, and welcome to another edition of HeteroHIV. I'm your host and moderator, Reggie Smith. As many of you know, I am a long-term survivor living with HIV since 1984. Over the years, both my life and the landscape of HIV and AIDS have transformed dramatically. In the early days, there were no medications, and we faced the terror of imminent death from opportunistic infections that ravaged our weakened immune systems. Back then, the scientific, medical, and Black communities were perplexed and terrified by HIV. Doctors were frustrated and helpless and unable to offer any real solutions as they watched millions of us succumb to the virus. The Black church often responded with harsh moral judgments, showing little compassion for those affected by HIV due to perceived lifestyle choices. Legal system, they criminalized us for simply living our lives, trying to legislate us into invisibility out of the fear of the unknown. And politicians, in positions to allocate resources and funding, they frequently ignored and ostracized us, dooming many of us to certain death. Perhaps the most painful of all was the way our own families and friends treated us. They often shunned us, speaking about us with fear and disdain, using terms like the monster or the package, and sometimes even isolating us with paper plates and plastic forks. This pervasive fear created deep divisions within our communities and families, especially between the gay and straight communities. Gay Black men face multiple layers of discrimination, and straight Black men feared being associated with homosexuality due to the added societal stigma. The down low phenomenon was a real issue, born out of fear and pressure. And Black women, as always, had to adapt and endure. They bore the weight of the continuing our entire race. And at the same time, they were attending the funerals of their loved ones and often keeping the secrets that men took to their graves. Amid all of this, what we truly sought was acceptance and love, all of us, right? While homophobia existed long before HIV, the virus exacerbated the ideological and sociological divide between Black men and women. Yet many lives have been enriched through the experiences of dealing with HIV, haven't they? Many organizations have profited from providing hope and education and treatment, though some believe that profit motives hinder the pursuit of a cure. Stigma has been a constant shadow over HIV. Despite the advances in treatment and prevention, HIV still evokes shame, unlike other diseases like cancer and sickle cell, which garner sympathy. Stigma, as I define it, is being more concerned with what others think of you than what you are your own self-worth. Stigma has produced hatred and bullying and self-doubt, preventing many from seeking help due to fear of inadequate support or feelings of unworthiness. This self-stigmatization is particularly damaging as it reinforces negative, harsh views about oneself. Within the Black community, the stigma around HIV is deeply embedded and is often amplified by the perceptions of the LGBTQ community. Straight Black men, fearing association with homosexuality, have isolated themselves from crucial information and resources. This fear hinders our efforts to shift the behaviors and eradicate HIV. Despite this, some of us have reached a level of self-realization that allows us to work together, regardless of sexual identity. I'm deeply grateful for the advocacy of the gay community, which saved my life and the lives of millions, despite widespread judgment and disdain. As a result of this advocacy, many decision makers in the HIV-related fields are from the gay community, and their efforts have inadvertently perpetuated the narrative that HIV is a gay disease. However, HIV is a human virus that affects us all. The data, imagery, messaging, and funding needed to reflect this reality is still lacking. Black women, now among the fastest growing groups of new infections, contract HIV primarily through heterosexual contact. Now, this is not solely due to any down low behavior, but a broader range of factors. Black men, whether gay or straight, have a responsibility to change this trend and to protect our mothers and daughters and wives, girlfriends and sisters. We face a common enemy in the HIV retrovirus. And in an effort to change this trend, the Reginald and Dion Smith Foundation, with funding from Gilead Sciences, presents this special edition of HeteroHIV. Today, we'll discuss the true nature and the current status of HIV stigma within and outside the communities serving those affected with HIV. We've gathered some of the most informed voices from the southeastern United States for a frank discussion about the past and present relationships between men who have sex with men and those who do not. Our aim is to begin a national dialogue about the healing needed to truly end the HIV epidemic. Joining us for this conversation are my friends Christopher Matthews, Derek Robinson, Larry Walker, Jamal Bey, Timothy Webb, and Barry Sermons. Now, I intentionally did not attribute any specific roles to our guests because you're all much more than your jobs. You're amazing spiritual human beings that are having an impactful and diverse human experiences. And we want to focus on those experiences. So thank you all for joining us and going out of your way to join in this discussion. I'd like to stipulate that this is going to be a no cancellation zone. So we hope that you feel free to share your truth without fear of judgment. And we certainly will not be judging each other or being politically correct, all right? And we acknowledge that there's been a new release of some HIV language, but we're not holding ourselves to that either. So let's get this conversation started. How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Microphone check, 1, 2. Yeah. Coming in from, we got people coming from all over the world. Yes? Great. Okay, Reggie, we got people coming from all over the world. Let's start the conversation. I want to ask, has anyone had any personal experiences where you've encountered HIV stigma, and how did it affect you?
I'm gonna jump in right here. So I talked about this in therapy today. I'm newly single, and all through the 20 years I've been HIV positive, I've always let who my partner was going to be that I was HIV positive. And I met this woman recently, and we were getting real close, and the kissing started going, and then she left. And she came back the next day, and I said, I'm HIV positive. And she was like, and you let me kiss you? Man, that remind me that I've disclosed many, many times. And that's the first time I got a reaction like that. Shook me up. It shook me up. So that's my.
Well, one of the other things that we didn't do was disclose anybody's status. So thank you for disclosing yours.
Hey.
That's a whole nother topic, is disclosure. But stigma related experiences. Anyone else?
I would like to add that even though I am not HIV positive, Reggie, I have, because I've lived the great majority of my adult existence in the same gender loving community, the stigma has always existed. Where they came from, my parents' fear that my life would one day eventually make me or would end up leading to me becoming seropositive, or whether it was my own internal thoughts that this is because I did kind of come out late 90s, early 2000s, my own internal dialogue that said that it was inevitable for me to become positive because that's just the way life was, that people who were like me would just eventually become positive. So I think that stigma has always just existed, whether you're positive or not, in my community. And I think finding out that people were positive, the stigma would always deepen, right? Like, oh, you're positive. It's only recently that I think as a community, we've gotten to the space where we're starting to think like, hey, that doesn't matter. One way or another, we are just what we are.
I think that probably has a lot to do with the medications and the fact that we're living longer as well. I think we probably need to level the playing field and find out what do you think? What is stigma? Because I don't know that it's as well defined. We say it a lot of times, but we may be thinking about different things. What is your definition of stigma, Larry?
So my definition of stigma are those negative feelings or thoughts that are either applied to yourself, by yourself, communities, enacted by others who have misinformation or just negative views of a certain situation is not related to or just solely relegated to HIV stigma. I feel like, you know, one of the main stigmas are racism, sexism, the isms, heterosexism, and things like that. But more specific to this conversation, I think that, you know, as people, as Chris said, you know, like growing in the age of HIV in certain communities, you know, you can experience HIV stigma regardless of your serostatus.
So what I'm hearing, Jamal, is that at the root of all stigma is judgment. Is that
Yes.
what you're hearing?
Yes, and I agree. I agree with everything that Larry said. You know, I think for me though, as someone who is HIV negative, and have worked with HIV for a very long time, just the assumption, because I've worked with people that have HIV, it's assumed that either I'm HIV positive or that I'm gay. And so it's battling those types of misinformations and stigma that I've had to deal with throughout my career.
So Timothy, I know that we've had some chats before, and briefly, and we agreed on one thing. That it's really about being human, isn't it?
It's always about being human. I think that, you know, the fine line is that we need to lead from the human aspect first, and then everything else comes after that. And I think a lot of times we can't get past, oh, this person has this person's doing this. I'm like, we all human. We all need love. We all need caring for. We all need attention. You know, personally for me, when to go back to your other questions, like, you know, trying to have a kid right now, it's a lot. It's a lot. So stigmatizing. Even though I'm viral suppressed and I'm doing everything I've been doing, I've been viral suppressed for years. It's just been hard the last 3 years with trying to, you know, find someone, first of all, that would agree to have the kid, and then secondly, you know, saying when you find them, it's like, okay, now I got to tell you everything that's going on, and then you talking about that part. We have, you know, got pushback, a lot of pushback, you know, and a lot of people like, oh, I don't believe that you're gay, I don't believe that you're this, I don't believe that, and it's just like, you know, you can't go by face judgment or book by what you see anymore, because I think the new, you know, kids on the block don't necessarily show their gayness out front, or they're even like wearing it on their shoulders now. It's like people are just regular people now. So it was before you can look and say, hey, I could tell this person this, or I could tell this person that. It's like you can't even do that anymore.
Right. So then I guess we should stop the bullshit about down low. What do you think, Derek?
You know, I can remember when it first started. I remember the first time I heard about the download was through R. Kelly. You know what I mean? I didn't hear about it from the other end. You know, and if somebody wanted to tell you something, you know, they said just keep it on the download. You know, and then when the narrative changed, I was afraid to use the word. You know what I mean? I was actually afraid to use the word, because I tell somebody something, I say keep that on the download. We just keep going. But after the narrative changed of what the word meant, you know, I was kind of afraid to use the word, and then even listen to that song again. You know what I mean? Because I just didn't want to be associated with it. But I think Download has done a disservice to the community, as a whole. You know, one of the things I always try to stress as a prevention specialist, if a person was bisexual and their partner became reactive, you know, so how do you know it came from a man? And if he was messing with multiple women, you know what I mean? Where does it actually come from? And once that demeanor or that tag or that definition is put upon a person, it's hard for that person to change the narrative. You know, even, you know, I work with successful returning citizens, and I know people that's been in prison, and in prison they do it this way. When they out, they do it that way. You know what I mean? But they always have to carry that definition. You know, I think it needs to be eliminated. You know, and it's cause of more hatred. I think hatred and stigma, because In the beginning, that was the blame of the spread of the virus because men were being bisexual, not that they were just having sex.
You know, you said something that was real important, and that's you wouldn't even listen to the record because you didn't want to be seen as recognized in download. You know, a lot of straight men are not getting information because they don't want to be identified as gay. And I think that that's at the root of a lot of, because of the judgment surrounding it. And thank you, brothers, who have been living the lifestyle of men having sex with men and proudly, you know, because without you, we wouldn't be where we are now. But for some reason, you know, even if you're positive as a straight man, you know, your ass could be on fire and you won't go where the water's at because you don't want to see somebody, you don't want somebody to see you drinking. And I think that's kind of crazy. Why are we still having these problems? I mean, go ahead, Larry.
No, I was gonna say I think that we can't underestimate the impact of stigma. You know, like, I mean, from the seat that we sit in as people who are out and proud about our statuses, helping prevent, you know, HIV, we have like a global lens. We have like a deeper lens. But I remember in 2007, you know, when I was getting the information about my status, my seropositive status, you know, the first stigma that I felt was that implied self-stigma. You know, there were certain people I wouldn't tell in my family, certain conversations I wasn't willing to have because I felt that certain folks wouldn't get it. And because I didn't have those conversations, certain of my family members, you know, have succumbed to HIV related illnesses. So like, I think that, you know, we just have to give folks a little grace. And just as Black men in general, we're not getting tested for a lot of things. You know, we don't have that healthy relationship with the medical industrial complex. And that's because of a really nuanced history with the medical industrial complex. You know what I mean? So like, if we're going to be helpful in getting folks across that line, we have to honor all of the barriers. You know what I mean? And of course, some of that is with us, but it's not unfounded, right? Like, it comes from a real place. And it's when we start to like excavate and chip at that away at that real place and honor, like, yo, you scared to get tested. And it's probably because of some, you know, homophobia, some stigma related to people living with HIV, but it's also probably related to the history that Black people have had with the medical industrial complex, and really start creating that, like you did with this show, Reggie, you know, creating that bravery that, look, you know, whatever it is, I'm going to love you regardless of that. And we're going to get through that together, because stigma and shame are expressed in fear center around, like, you know, chronic illnesses, not just HIV, are real. You know, my dad died of prostate cancer. Prostate cancer is one of the most treatable cancers, but he's a straight man. He didn't want to, you know, the doctor to be up in his butt, and he didn't, you know, feel emboldened to have this conversation, you know, so he succumbed to prostate cancer. So there's a lot of stigmas around, like, Black men in the medical health industrial complex. So we have to really kind of chip away at those fears.
And it's based in trauma and a lot of things. But what we have, because I've watched our own evolution as well. And so some of us have evolved into, for the first 14, 15 years, I didn't disclose. And it really is in the context of where we are with the virus. You know, things have changed. They have evolved. And so it's easier now for me to disclose. But we want to make it easier for everyone. And I know that a lot of us are advocates and working in the field, and we have some impact as to how the messaging is going to be done. And our first inclination is towards self-preservation. But I think that we need to maybe be more broad in the way that we approach it, so that we bring everyone into the conversation. And we're going to do exactly that and discuss that a little bit. And I'm going to lead back off with Christopher while we have you. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about who's controlling the money and the messaging around HIV. So y'all hold on one second. We'll come back. This is Hetero HIV. I'm your host, Reggie Smith, and we'll be right back with more right after this.
Programming on Jazz 91.9 WCLK is made possible in part by the Reginald and Dion Smith Foundation, a proud WCLK business member. The Reginald and Dion Smith Foundation is a wellness awareness recovery network virtual community They help people affected by HIV, those in recovery from substance use disorders, and persons looking for support to change habits that lead to poor health. The Reginald and Dion Smith Foundation is a judgment-free safe space zone for sharing healing solutions, finding understanding, and empowerment. More information at www.theherdsf.com.
Let's dive into something important, and that's PrEP by B Brand. I know it's not your typical conversation, but it is crucial for your well-being. So PrEP is like an insurance policy, but for your sexual health. It's a one-time tablet that you take within 3 days of having unprotected sex. It provides protection against chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis, helping you stay safe. Yes, that's right. Plus, this product has gained recognition and trust in reputable publications such as CNN, the New York Times, and Forbes. Even health departments in progressive cities such as San Francisco distribute it to help lower the rise in STD rates. So whether you're just enjoying your social life or preparing for the unexpected, PrEP is there to support you. So stay informed, stay protected, and keep your health the top priority with PrEP by B Brand.
And we're back, and we're talking about HIV and the true nature of HIV stigma. And we've got a conversation between some of my gay brothers and my straight brothers. We're not going to talk about LGBTQIA+, the whole letters, but we want to talk about the money. Christopher, I want to ask you, Christopher, we didn't talk about titles and things like that, but I know you know that there's money being distributed to organizations, and I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about who's controlling the money and the messaging around HIV and why.
I think the money is often controlled by two things. It's controlled by the innovation that comes from pharma, because pharma is working diligently to make new medications, to put out new things to address the issues, but then it's also controlled about the feds, right? Because the feds are initiating new research, they're doing the long-term studies or paying for those long-term studies, they're feeding money down through the states, they're feeding money also down to the states, down to the regular engagement level with everyday people. And so the money is controlled mostly by those two people in those two ways, right? They're in each addressing is their own desire for what needs to happen, right? Pharma is always trying to, for lack of better terms, pharma exists to make money. I mean, they are doing the community a good, but they're also trying to make money, and so they're pushing videos and community engagement, et cetera, so that they are better able to address the needs of the people who they're serving. And then we have the feds who are also trying to address the community good, and they're also trying to push their dollars where they want to go. I think the problem with it is, the good thing about it is that there is money. Money does exist, and there is always innovation on the horizon. I think that's good. I think the bad or the downfall is that because oftentimes the people are doing their own research and their research is sometimes behind, it isn't ground level innovation, we miss out on the opportunities to see where issues are rising swiftly, and we are often behind change, right? So by the time we get information from something from either group, they've done so much research and they've spent so much time researching it over and over again that we often miss out on the new innovation that has happened in the moment. So I want to applaud them. At the same time, I do want all parties involved to know that sometimes those things that are homegrown in the ghetto are much more conducive to success because they are right on the horizon of what's going on, and we've got to be aware of that. Some of the best interventions are on the streets right now, and they're being created by people who are just looking to address whatever situation is going on in their local communities. And by the time they get a gazillion dollars worth of funding, that issue may not even be the same issue anymore, or we might not even need to address it in the same way. So we
Well,
need to
you know what? They're a little
we
slow.
also
They
need
are
to
a
be
little
clear
slow.
about
They
that.
are definitely a little slow, Christopher. And not only that, but organizationally, that's exactly right. And we're grateful for the money. But as it filters down, because of the fact that the virus was affecting the gay community, and you advocated for it in the beginning, most of the positions of influence are held by gay black men and white men, but mostly gay men. And the messaging and people, and I watch all the time with the farmers are always centered around the gay community. And never, you never see any images reflecting. Am I true about that, Jamal? I see you shaking your head, Jamal.
Well,
Yeah. Go ahead, Derek, and then I'll go after you. Go ahead, Derek.
One of the things you said, Reggie, I always go back to 1994 when HIV and AIDS was the #1 killer of black men in the community in the United States. In '95, the narrative changed, and nobody woke up to it like this. This is what's happening to black men. It wasn't gang violence. It wasn't overdoses. It wasn't drive-by shooting. HIV and AIDS was the #1 killer of black men in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you say
that's all black
it began, yeah, all black men, but when you begin with we always gonna have the narrative, that the gay narrative to it, but then we never know how was it affecting our community, how was it affecting straight black men, and so that's a narrative that hadn't been brought to the forefront, and I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna be quiet. It's just like with the dandelions, they're recognized now. But what happened to all of these black boys that was born HIV positive? Did they all die? Did they finish high school? Did they finish college? Did they become electricians? Did they become computer geniuses? We don't know what happened to these black boys that were born HIV positive.
Mm-hmm. And I can see it in your eyes, Tim, that we talk bisexual. It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is. If you're a black man and we're all dying from HIV.
Yeah, I would say for me, and I hope I don't step on nobody's feet, so get anybody in their feelings.
Please, if you feed it in the aisle,
think that it goes back to the beginning. Like we're all black men.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is how we choose to have sex, right, or who we choose to have sex with. I think that I think we need to move the labels all the way out the way and say, why is it that black gay men are dying at an alarming rate? Whether you're heterosexual, bisexual, gay, whatever the case may be, what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. We're still all black men, and we're still all facing the same challenges. We're dying at alarming rates, and and nobody's really doing that much about it. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's really saying, hey, let's address the issue of black men. You know what I'm saying? And I'm happy, and I'm so happy when I see the issue when they said, hey, we gotta look out for black women now, because this thing is spreading throughout the black woman community, and they're putting an attention focus on looking for a black woman. They ain't asking black women, are you a lesbian? Are you this? Are you that? They say looking for black women. And we need to change the language around black men too. And we need to say black men, regardless of how they identify sexually or whatever the case may be. None of that really matters. You're still a black man and you're dying at an alarming rate. And HIV stigma is still serious in our community. That I test people on a regular. I don't really necessarily do it as much as I used to do it, but I have community events out and we test people. And black men always say, "Oh no, I don't. I think it's the end of my life." And I'm always telling them, "Listen, look at me. When you came up, walked to me, you didn't know I was HIV positive. I've been living with this HIV virus for a long time, and I'm thriving and surviving and making my life. So there is an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? There's some things you may have to do differently. Yeah, you have to disclose and do all these other things, but you are still a black man and you still have power. You are king. You know what I'm saying? We got to start talking in those type of languages and uplifting each other. And regardless of where they at on the spectrum, whether they gay or straight, whatever the case may be, you're a black man first, and we don't start looking at things in that manner. Like we're just going to lose the whole focus and everybody's going to still go into their own silos. Like I'm only going to worry about the gay man. I'm only going to worry about the heterosexual man. I'm only going to worry about the bisexual man. Like we have to really break those silos down and say, hey, we all human, we all black, and we all men.
That's right, and we're gonna have to fight together. And so, Jamal, who's the enemy, and what do we need to do to defeat it?
Well, I don't know if I want to use the word enemy, but what
Okay.
I will say is that there's two things. One is model and the other is apparatus. And so when you talk about funding, if you don't have anyone at the table at the federal level, you're not going to get heard, period. If you don't have a policy person, if you don't have connections to pharma, if you don't have connections to some of the largest AIDS organizations in the country, you're not going to get heard. You know, the first funding for communities of color actually came from Black gay men in the 90s. And what Black gay men or men who are gay who identify as Black have been successful about is following a model or apparatus that was inherited from white gay men. And so when you have a person at the federal level, when you have organizations that solely keep your narrative out there, that's where the funding is being directed. When people at ONAP, when people at PACHA, when people at the CDC, when all those apparatuses and models have a particular person or persons in charge or directing said funding or even opportunities in every aspect of either government or organizations that are funded by the government, then that's where the money is going to be directed.
That's right.
That's right. And that's just is, and that's the thing that no one wants, to talk about.
And it's only a big issue in that the imagery is keeping people from seeing themselves in the fight. And as a result, it perpetuates the stigma. And so people feel unworthy or they are ashamed to even disclose publicly. And, I just want to publicly, thank Christopher, because I know that he was sitting, I don't know if he was at the head of the table or where he was at the table, but he saw some efficacy in what the Reginald Dion Smith Foundation was trying to do around heterosexuals and the need for us to all be at the table in order to end the epidemic. So I just want to thank you on that. And Barry, you and I are, versed in communications, and we know that with digitally now, the way things are, you don't have to have a lot of money in order to bring a message. This message is being brought to you now. and it doesn't take a lot. It just takes the will of the people. And so I want to thank all of y'all for being here. Barry, what can we do to shift the imagery and the messaging around HIV from a guerrilla standpoint?
Well, first I need to acknowledge something before when you said, oh, not everybody's going to disclose. So I've known you for, I don't know, a whole bunch of years, and you've been encouraging me to be an advocate. So now I am, and the cat is out of the bag. But for me, I think that's the way I do it. For me as a guerrilla is to be willing to tell people or to disclose or be not really public, but I have a little antenna in here and it says, now is the time for you to tell somebody. And then the other thing I do is I advocate with everybody across the board. I believe in advocating for people living with HIV, period. Not one group or that group. and I've been in Washington D.C. advocating for healthcare and civil rights, for the last 8 or 9 years, since I was no longer afraid if people knew. Mm-hmm. What I'm really afraid of is my cousins or people that I know becoming positive because they didn't know. Just right. Like, I have friends and cousins and people who are affected by drugs and alcohol, and they all know that Barry's clean. So that's how I do it. Each one teach one, each one touch one. I used to be involved with organizations, but what I have found is there's a shift from taking care of people with HIV to the business of HIV.
So you hit a point there. Go ahead, Christopher, before we go to break.
There was a statement that Tim made about throwing all our labels out. I think one of the things we don't talk about is, and we've missed the mark on, is that there are some things that are a holdover from us just being in this country that makes us all the same and which connects us, period. Black men were hypersexualized from the days of plantation time, right? And so that has held over years and years in. We are this far removed from being on a plantation, and yet hypersexuality, the tenets of hypersexuality that existed from that time still hold over now. I remember being a very young boy. My father never told me to settle down with anybody. He told me to get out here and have a few experiences. And then when I was ready, then I could find somebody who was pretty decent. Little girls aren't socialized like that. They're socialized to be emotional, be connected very early on. We're socialized often to explore sexually. And so when we are having these conversations, we want to make it a black and white thing, like, oh, this is gay sex, this is heterosexual sex, when really there is an amount of exploration that exists for us as Black men, period, when it comes to sex. Most of the time, most of us have, by the time we reach maturity, we've had a multitude of sexual partners. And for some of us, while we have a partner, have a multitude of sexual partners. So right. We can't have this conversation and separate us out without also talking about the impact that exists from that holdover, from the systematic oppression that exists from us, even from and the plantation psychology that has brought us to this moment. We're prone to be having more sex. And in a variety of ways, because that's how we were socialized on the plantation, to have a lot of it and to have it on demand, and when somebody else wanted to enjoy it, whether they wanted to be watching and enjoy it. And so we don't talk about that, and we leave that out of the conversation. We want to talk about the impact of having that sex, but we don't want to talk about how we got here, and we don't want to talk about how it is affecting us all. So I just want to add that to the conversation.
I'm glad you did contextualize it. And that's just I think the next level. I think the next level after that is the energetic part of having an orgasm. Just having an orgasm for me was about still in my mind and trying, and it's the one time when I'm not thinking and I can get closer to heaven. So I think, finding God and finding a way out of here is the next level. But contextually, we all do bring that Black trauma into it. And whatever we bring into it, it's affecting our Black women, our sisters, our mothers, because no matter what, the one thing we all have in common is we all have a mother, I would like to say. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that on the other side as we start talking about some solutions. But let's take a break. Let's take a break and pay a little homage to our mothers and sisters, and with a message to Black women. And we'll come back right after this.
My name is Daphina Ward, and I serve as Executive Director of the Southern AIDS Coalition. This is my love letter to Black women.
I'm Charlie King. I am the HIV campaigns manager at Advocates for Youth. This is my love letter to Black women.
Dr. Basola Ochikutu, Commissioner of Public Health, City of Boston. This is my love letter to Black women.
You are the mother of civilization, and you still set all the trends. You're deserving of joy, praise, and rest. Your beauty cannot be denied or overstated.
You get to dream as big as you want and reach for the stars. We're often told that we aren't worthy and we shouldn't be in certain places, but we belong in every place and every space.
For too long, Black women have been disproportionately impacted by HIV and other sexually transmitted infections. For too long, the development of interventions that provide Black women with the knowledge to protect ourselves has largely been ignored. It is time for renewed prioritization of Black women's sexual health, including our HIV prevention needs.
My name is Reuben Warren, recently retired from Tuskegee University as Director of the National Center for Bioethics and Research in Healthcare. This is my love letter to Black women.
My name is Letitia Lopre. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Medicine at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. This is my love letter to Black women.
Leisha McKinley Beach, the Atlanta Black Women Leaders on PrEP. This is my love letter to Black women. Dear beautiful queens, thank you. They're the only two words that come to mind when I think about the sacrifice, the compassion that you have given to the HIV workforce. Thank you.
It is hard, as it's been in all points in time, to be a Black woman, especially in America.
You are the beginning and the end. You are everything. You have not been given credit for what you've done, but history will reflect the value, the brilliance, and the contributions that you've made to humanity.
I still love the fact that I get to be a Black woman in America. I feel like we come from a group of women who were trailblazers. They were pillars in their community. They were oftentimes the people who everyone turned to when they needed strength, when they needed love, and they needed laughter. And those things haven't changed.
Thank you for never letting your guard down, for opportunities to ensure better health care, for opportunities to ensure equal access to HIV prevention.
My name is Reggie Smith. I am the Executive Director of the Reginald and Dion Smith Foundation. This is my love letter to Black women.
Hi, I'm Rashida Chandler. I'm an associate professor at Emory University in the School of Nursing. This is my love letter to Black women.
I've been diagnosed HIV positive for almost 40 years, and I've been married to a courageous Black woman for almost all of that time, and she remains HIV negative. I want you to know that I represent the majority of Black men who vow to love and protect you under any circumstances having to do with HIV and beyond.
Dear Black women, we are enough, we are beautiful, we are unique, but together complete. We will overcome someday, starting today, and our health and wellness is one way.
We admire you and we pray for your forgiveness as we come together as a community and a family to end the HIV epidemic, because love is love.
When it comes to caring for others like our children, fathers, family, and mothers, promise me we will squeeze ourselves in every now and then, even encouraging the same of a friend.
The health of Black women must be made a priority. I care, and so should you.
I think this is also our time to build and unite our community.
You have a community of other Black women that are standing behind you, so reach out and form your village.
We have influenced every systemic institution. Let's be and remain optimally fit, sis. And I seal this letter with a big hug and kiss.
Thank you for your tears, those that were of sorrow and those that were of great joy.
Love yourself. You are worthy, and dream big.
Walk in your abundance without apology.
I'm so proud to be a father, a husband, and a son of Black women.
Just know that all your work and your service has not been in vain. Thank you.
And it's so important that we remember that, Like I am in a serial discordant relationship, and my wife is negative, and you know, just Timothy, I hear you talking about trying to have a child. You know, it's Black women are the fastest rate of new infections. You know, how can we come together to do a better job? You know, I hear you talking about dropping the labels. So how do we come together to work together to do a better job of protecting our queens? Larry?
First, I think that it's by recognizing and realizing that the impact of HIV on Black women isn't new. You know, Katrina Haslip in the 90s was fighting and petitioning Congress to have Black women added to the list of priority populations. So, I mean, it's about having these conversations, honoring the over sexualization of Black bodies, similar to what Christopher said, and then breaking down the barriers. I'm not one for throw out the labels. Like, people get to identify the way that they want to identify. I think that for some of us, our labels give us power. Like, you know, I don't know where I would be if I couldn't identify as a Black man. That's a label. But I think that we need to get to a space of like loving each other across the barriers and the boundaries of labels, and having those frank, honest, helpful, useful conversations as opposed to being prescriptive and competitive. You know, I think that a certain level of HIV Inc. funding has put various communities into competition when we should be working into collaboration. Black health is the conversation. Black health is wealth. And if we have to work collaboratively to actually chip away at this thing. You know, like the prioritization of Black men, Black gays or cisgender loving men around HIV, again, started in the late 80s. But we're still one of the highest impacted groups, you know. So like it got to be more than just about messaging and one community safeguarding itself. We have to start seeing Black health as a global issue and start acting as a unit. And I think that that's how we safeguard one another, because it's not, you know, just Black women, or, you know, now we're seeing that Black trans men are being left out of certain conversations and are celebrating Black straight men are, you know, in a situation that Black women were in the 90s, where Black straight men don't get HIV, they just die of AIDS. You know what I mean? So it's like we really have to start to act in this concerted, uniformed way just across communities.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we should know that anyway. I mean, as Black people in America, we've always had to fight. And separating us, dividing us to conquer us is not a new strategy. Yes. And you know, I'm, as the Reginald Dion Smith, our foundation, you know, we focused on wellness because that's the one thing that we all have in common. Doesn't matter what, who, what. It don't matter what. When you're sick, the only thing you want to be is well. And everybody's got that. Well, not everyone, but that Tuskegee. You know, Tuskegee. You know, you can't trust. So the best way to handle it. Thank God for HIV, because when I was diagnosed, there were no medications. So I had to find natural methods. I had to find a way to stay alive. And that empowered me. And so we want to empower each other to find ways to stay well. And one way to do that is to not be stressed out. Stigma seems to add to our stress, because now you're holding a secret and you're not getting information. Derek, we're trying to bring, I know that you started a heterosexual group, people who are identified as heterosexual because they were afraid to go into the gay men's group to get the information and save lives and the community. You know, how hard has it been to bring them along, and what can we do to bring them into the fold?
Yeah, by the grace of God and consistency, we started a group, Straight and Positive. July will make 4 years for us. And today we have over 80 members from all over the United States. And it took a year and a half for us to even gain 10 members. And once we started participating in different venues, the group began to grow. And so we've been able to do presentation at the International Conference on Stigma for the past 4 years. If any of you all Positive Living Conference in Fort Walton Beach. We've been able to present there twice. This year we had the opportunity to have 2 members that go to AIDS Whites for the first time. So what we found out, we had to go beyond being a support group. We had to go beyond being straight and black. We had to go to start empowering each other. And once we began to empower each other, we began to have advocates to come aboard and train us in the right way in order to reach the table. You know, as a straight black man, we're still trying to reach the table, you know, and we're either we're gonna build a table for ourselves, or we're gonna be invited to the table. Because one of the things I hear in this whole conversation is that something has to be done. Something has to be done. You know, with gang violence, you know, they produce mentorship programs to keep children out of gangs. You know, it needs to be a sexual health mentoring program. You know, I can remember, you know, black girls unwedded having children. You know, they had to do something about it. You know what I mean? They had to do something about it, even if it was putting them on birth control pills. You know, but what happened to that male who continued to produce children, right? Nobody was able to stop and mentor that person. And that, in order for us to come to a solution in the HIV epidemic, we have to start mentoring each other, regardless of how we want to get down. We know black men, we bear a burden. Not only do we bear a burden of being positive, we bear the burden of our women becoming positive. You know, I can remember being on a panel, United We Rise, you know, every black body, and the thing that was brought to my attention, the solution is the black man. And then in the HIV epidemic, whether it's from the same gender loving, whether it's from the bi, whether it's from the straight men, where all our women, they become affected, you know, diagnosed through heterosexual contact. So us as black men, what can we do? What can we do? What program can we put together where everybody is able to engage? How can we create our own brochures? You know, I left the HIV field for like 8 years and came back into it. And they still had this brochure, "Don't get caught slipping on your pimping." You know what I mean? And, you know, with somebody saying, I said, you know, that message didn't work 10 years ago. Why are you still handing out these same brochures? You know, but then when it says don't get caught slipping on your pimping, and we know pimping don't even exist no more. It's sex trafficking. And you end up with 60 years. You know, I have a lot of young black men, you know, thought it was a joke, but they doing 60 and 80 years in prison now for sex trafficking. And I say, you can listen to all the music you want to. It ain't pimping no more. It's sex trafficking.
That's right.
And they're going to treat you accordingly. But we have to get together as black men, find a solution. And Reggie didn't know what I was talking about. I know Larry knows what I was talking about. One day I said, Reggie, this is the Atlanta Compromise. He said, that's some Civil War stuff. I said, no, that's not Civil War stuff. You know, if you ever go into the Atlanta Compromise, it was two different mindsets coming together and saying something has to be done to uplift our people.
You put a lot of heat on
Atlanta Compromise. Something power.
Putting a lot of heat on that microphone, Derek. And I agree with you that we definitely do need to put together a compromise. And that's why we're starting this conversation. You know, and we're not the only ones that want to be in this conversation. It's just that you are in my immediate circle, and you're the ones that the universe brought together. You know, I think that we definitely need an alliance for a narrative change. And that narrative change is being actually formulated through us, and for us to work together. And this won't be the last time that we have this conversation, if it's cool with y'all, but we do have a limit of time right now. I'm glad that everyone had an opportunity to contribute. And the next time, we'll bring some other folks to the table, and we're going to do this some more. I know that we're all working at different organizations. So I'm going to actually raise your right hand and take a pledge that we will continue this conversation, and we'll do something more concrete together. We'll continue to create an alliance for narrative change and work together to bring everybody to the table so that we can save all our folks from HIV and beyond. Is that cool?
Ashe.
Cool. All right. Ashe. Hey, I want to thank everybody
to
for
do
being
my
them.
best, to do my duty to God and my country.
My country, huh?
That's the Boy Scout in me. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, you took it over the cliff, man. So I want to thank Christopher Matthews Jr., Larry Scott Walker, Barry Sermons, Jamal Bay, Timothy Webb, and Derek Robinson being a part of this roundtable. And I thank all the people that provided the energy that let us know that this is a conversation that need to be had. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We can go much deeper, and we will. Okay, so this HeteroHIV, let's do the giveaway. If you're in the room, you got an opportunity to win $100. $100 each and every time we do this program. So let's do the giveaway, Matt. See who wins $100 this month. Hit it. Round and round and round we go. Don't stop on my name, and that'll work for me. I can use that on it. Oh, Lamar Yarbrough. What's up, Lamar? All right, that works. Lamar Yarbrough is our winner of the $100 for joining us here at HeteroHIV. Thank you for being here. Thank everybody who's joining us wherever you're joining us, be it in social media. It's been loads of fun, but we got to run. I'll see you on the other side of the moon. I want to give much love to and thanks to Gilead Sciences for the funding and supporting this series. I also want to thank our team, Ty Freeman and Tanisha Baker, for their help during this web show. Thanks to the wonderful producer, Matt Schick, who's running my stream. And special thanks to all those who participated in the program for being here. As promised, we gave away the $100, and we're here every last Thursday of the month. You can find us on demand. We'll be here at 5:30 every last Thursday of the month. We encourage you to join our Wellness Awareness Recovery Network, which is a virtual community that's a safe space for sharing healing solutions. Our contact information will be on the screen after the closing credits, so stick around for that. One of my heroes, Harriet Tubman, said she freed hundreds of slaves, but she could have freed thousands more had they only known they were slaves. Harriet might not have been focused on what history would say about her when she was doing her thing. She just simply did what was necessary to make herself and others free. We thank God for our guests and their time and energy, and want to remind you that yesterday is history and tomorrow is still a mystery. So let's just keep the focus on what's going on right now. And if we do that, I'm sure we'll have our hearts and minds in the right place. Remember, unity does not need uniformity. We all want to be loved. So let the healing continue. Until the next time, peace and blessings.